Yeah, recording has started.
Okay, okay.
Davide.
Okay, hello everyone again. It's a pleasure being in this event. We are talking about Toki C64 Remastered, which is a project I started back in February of this year to bring the C64 conversion of the Toki arcade game by Ocean to bring it closer to the arcade because it's a game I'm very attached to, and it was not the best version possible. So I'll get to that quickly, but first, something about me so you can understand where I'm coming from. So I started getting passionate about computers with my C64 in the early 80s. And I also started doing some pixel art right before switching to Amiga 500 at the end of '92. So I was a bit late to the Amiga, and I spent a lot of time with my C64. And I remember doing with the Koala Paint to several renditions of arcade games I love, such as Street Fighter 2 and so on. And yes, this love for arcade games was kind of a bit frustrated when during my C64 and Amiga days, because many conversions were not satisfactory. So I kept this feeling of anger and bitterness with me, and it resurfaced in recent years. By the way, I loved playing video games, but I also started making them when I had my Windows-based PC back in 2002 until 2008. I made several homebrew games with tools such as the Games Factory, Multimedia Fusion, which, to my knowledge, they were made by the team who made Amos on the Amiga. First, I had a coder that actually helped me for our first game, the one you see up here, the one with the chameleon, which also won a prize in Italy. But later on, I started learning how to do games with such tools, and then I made more, and I basically released most of them. There are a few that are left unfinished while in later years, but I do all the pixel art for them, and so I also learned how to do decent game design, how a programmer thinks when writing games. So this came in help in recent times, and so I really liked doing pixel art, but then I stopped because I had more important things to do and I had no time, and so my passion wore off. And then a couple of years ago, I also joined the Zap Italia, so it's the Italian version of Zap C64, uh, which is a magazine that I used to buy when I was young, and then it came back recent years after the return of Zap 64. And so I joined as an editor, and I've been reviewing games for more than 2 years now. And I had the opportunity to appreciate how the community is really thriving with passion, with making games, but also with fixing old games to basically make fans happier. And I really appreciate that. And after a bit of time, I decided I wanted to do something similar. I basically decided I'd love to do new commercial games for any 8 or 16-bit system that I owned or not, because I'm very passionate about games. But I can't do that alone because I'm no coder. I'm a pixel artist, an amateur pixel artist. But I actually never did pixel art for C64. I did a bit of illustrations, but not dealing with sprites and so on. So I decided my first game would be a C64 game, but I wasn't ready yet to do that. And to learn how to do proper graphics with the C64, I thought maybe I should start by revisiting a game that I love, but maybe was mistreated. And so I instantly thought about Toki because it's an arcade game that came out in around 1989, but actually it was distributed in 1990. And I first saw it in Italy at a local bar near my house in the summer of 1990 during the World Cups, soccer World Cup. And me and my friends went crazy about it because it was very quirky, very nice looking, very playable, nice catchy music, very tongue-in-cheek. So when I saw the advert for the C64 version on Zap pages of Zap, I was very happy about it. But unfortunately, the conversion of Toki never came out in Italy. It was meant to be published on cartridge, but since the market was very little, we think that the Italian distributor at the time, at the end, did not distribute the game. As far as we know, the game never came out. I sure never saw it in stores, so I basically waited for it a couple of years and never actually saw it. I only saw it years later, around 2000, when emulation started appearing, and find out that the game I dreamed to play on my C64 was actually not the version I hoped for. It was an above average conversion, that has to be said, and especially after working on it, I really appreciate the work that went on it from a programmer's point of view, because it's very faithful. It's an above average conversion, but still has some flaws, especially for a fan like me of the game, which knows every pixel inside and out of the arcade. I can't unsee the ugly sprites. You can see here the grayish colors. You see, they chose for basically the global colors for the sprites. They chose dark gray and light gray, effectively making the game look very dull, as you can see. Also, the backgrounds were good, but the last one was very lesser quality. The soundtrack is fine, but the music does not sound like the arcade at all. And it's a bit frustrating to play because you basically jump when you don't want to, and the collisions are unfair. There are also strange bugs and mistakes. For example, they they completely switch the colors in the final sequence, for example. So there's a bit of problems with Q&A, with QA, quality assurance, and I'm sure they rushed it out at that point. But the sprites really scream for justice because it seems like they were drawn by really someone who was not a graphician. And so by the early February 23, I started doing some mock-ups to test how I could improve upon this game. And I started posting the same picture here, as you can see, on forums like Lemon64 and Facebook to look for someone interested in helping me, basically not rewriting the game, but reverse engineering and editing the existing conversion, because I thought it would be harder to find someone interested in building a game from scratch. It's such a long and demanding process. It would be easier to find someone interested in fiddling with an existing game. And as you can see, the first tests I did were encouraging. Okay, I think I thought I could really come closer to making justice to the arcade. The first step was to choose upon the global sprite colors. So instead of dark gray and light gray, I went for brown for the the dark shades, and yellow for the lighter tones. Why? While this choice is does not suit all the situations, it is the best possible for Toki, in my opinion, because the first thing I wanted to achieve was to have the ape, the main character, Toki, to really look like the arcade. So it had to have a yellow face and a brown fur. And this was only possible if the global sprite colors were yellow and brown. There was no other possibility to achieve such a result. Okay. So having published some help requests online, I soon found company. So the team, this is how the team looks like now, but it was a gradual process. So the same day I posted online, Mariano joined me. And after a few days, even Pasquale joined the team. And those are two amateur coders. So they have little experience, just like me, but they were very motivated and interested in fixing Toki with me. And so we started finding ways to bring the sprites into the game. And to my surprise, Aldo Chiumo, which is the musician to A Pig Quest, a very important game that came out this year on C64, he basically sent me his version of the first level music, and he made me this surprise, and it sounds amazing. And in a few days, he sent me all the entire soundtrack to the game converted from the arcade. It's stunning. I haven't shown it to anybody online, so it's still under wraps because I'm waiting to have the game in a more complete state and make a video. But I can anticipate that it's already sounding great. At a certain point of the process, I mean, after 3 months, Mariano thought it was time to seek for help and find out that Ewan Gamble from Australia is really talented in the disassembling and reverse engineering C64 games. And Ewan is one of the guys who probably put the many hours into the game, just like me, to fix stuff. So it's very, very important that if you see the game, the state it is because Ewan really spent a lot of time. But in the first weeks of the project, Mariano and Pasquale were fundamental because without them, the project would have died. So how we do we fix Toki? Well, first of all, our communication is on Discord and the project is stored on GitHub. And then the coders use these tools to analyze the code and put all the new sprites in. So they also did custom scripts. The first were made by Mariano, and then when Iwan joined, he wrote a custom Python disassembler, which is amazing. Unfortunately, you'd have to ask him to show it because I don't have more details to explain. It's not my field, but believe me, it's really, really interesting. As far as my activities goes, I use paint.net to draw the graphics because it's a free tool that has a really a learning curve, which is very, very short. So I started doing the fun thing, the graphics really soon. I did not have to learn to use a complex tool. And also I use SpritePad Pro and Chartpad Pro to finalize the sprite sheets and the chart sets that then will go into the game. Oh, so this is a preview of the results of my work on Toki. And as you can see, even though I actually drew the Toki sprite only in September, so it is one of the last sprites I drew, because I waited to master my skills in converting the graphics. But as you can see, it is just like I anticipated. I just needed to have the yellow face and the brown fur to achieve the maximum possible fidelity to the arcade. So since this is the main character, the one that the player always seen on the screen, this sprite makes the game. This has to look good. It has to look just like the arcade. And this is what I set out to achieve from the very first second of the project. I'm really happy how it turned out, but it was really a lot, a lot of work because I'm not a professional pixel artist. It is a very fun activity, converting graphics from the arcade actually, but it takes a lot of time. And as you can see, even though I'm no professional, my results I dare to say a lot better than the original C64 version. So you understand that actually the original graphics were really not up to snuff on C64. They could really have done better, but I think they outsourced the work to the job to someone who's not skilled at all on graphics. I like the guy who did the backgrounds, which is very skilled. And as you can see, the color scheme I choose most of the times lends to produce very good results. For example, take the zombie ape here. How can you call this a zombie ape? It's all gray. It's unbelievable. The same with the pike here. Oops, sorry. So by reinstating brown and yellow, it really allows me to have a colorful game which looks like the arcade and not just like Terminator. You see, this ape here looks like a robot. So, for example, here I don't have I cannot have the orange for the skin of the big ape head, but it's still very close to the original. So not in all cases my palette choice is perfect, but it is in most of the times, and still it's colorful. So for example here with Neptuna, the original actually has better colors, but there's no way I can achieve that and also have Toki looking like this. Okay, so there are compromises to be made, and the choice I made, I'm certain that is the best to express all the colorfulness and the quirky character of the original game. Okay, so what's my workflow? I use PaintNet, as I said before. And after I basically come up with a decent rendition of the sprite or the background, I then switch to import them into SpritePad or ChartPad Pro to then build the sprite sheet that the guys import into our build of the game. How do I proceed? Basically, then I'll show you with the video, but I anticipate it here. Basically, I create a new picture with at least 4 layers. I have the arcade layer with the original sprite ripped from the arcade. I have the original C64 sprite in another layer. Then I resize the original arcade sprite in order to have a reference for something that will fit the C64 number of sprites that compose the character. And then I start drawing on a 4th layer, which goes above the resized arcade version. So the first step is I trace the main color areas, then I detail, and then I start messing with pixel until I get the best possible result. Now, if I want to show you a little video of that, I don't know if it will work out of the box. Can you actually see the new video?
I think you're still sharing the slides.
Okay, let me see. Now, is it working?
Yes, I see something.
Okay. So this is a screen recording of me working on PaintNet. As you can see, basically we have Okay, this is the original arcade sprite. Let me see if I can. Okay, this is the original arcade sprite already shrunk down to fit inside the size of a single C64 sprite. And then I have a layer on top of that where I basically drew the basic colors areas. Okay, you see, so I basically drew over it with the blues, so they stick out on the green, and basically got the basic shape of the character, and then I start putting in more details. For example, like the spikes here. You can see I go clicking a pop-up menu, which was not captured on the video, but each time I try to turn on and off the layer so I can see what's behind, and then add the details. I basically do the double wide pixels myself. There's no option to have a 2x1 brush. So I go on trying to, basically, this is my technique to achieve a flawless, as close as possible conversion of the arcade graphics. So I'm not editing the existing C64 sprites. I'm redrawing all of them from scratch using the arcade graphics as source material. And so after a lot of back and forth between the layers, I come up with something like this. Okay, this is the final result. So it's not as good looking as the arcade because I have to stay within the limitations of the original C64 version. So this guy here uses just one sprite, and this is the best it can be done in such a low resolution. Okay, back to the presentation. In Toki, there are around 700 sprites, counting the intro and outro sequences. And of the in-game sprites, basically, as of today, I've done 512 of them. And there are 67 more to do, while 63 are work in progress. I also found out there are unused sprites. Some the game has are freeable because they actually have more sprites than they use in the code, but we are not going to use them because editing the code will be too much work actually. So how do we work as a team? Basically, after I draw my sprites in PaintNet, I have to export them in Sprite.pad Pro and cut them, you see, in single sprites. Because as you can see here, the bigger enemies use several sprites. And actually, Toki is a very complex game. So really kudos to the original coder because it really did a great job to recreate the original arcade. But unfortunately, it was let down by subpar sprites. So basically, we have a whole Google Sheet document with every single sprite that is in the sprite sheets that have been dumped from the game is traced here with the same ID, which is shown in SpritePad Pro. And then I specified for E1 the color he has to state into the code. Okay. So this is both a tool to track my progress and also a reference for the coders for the colors that have to be changed into the actual game. So this is basically how the sprite sheet look like. For example, this is one of the banks we have. So I was saying, Toki is really complex. Many characters are made up of several sprites. Toki himself uses 3 sprites. The bosses are huge, And this poses a problem because since I want my goal was to have the game look as much as close as possible to the arcade, that means that several solutions the original designer chose for C64 version actually are a problem for us because they prevent us to achieve a perfect fidelity. Even if it was actually possible on C64, we have to deal with the limitations of the actual version we are working on. So, for example, there's a frame of this guy here that I can't replicate perfectly just because we cannot change the position of the legs because they are the character is coded in a way that not all sprites can be moved easily. Moving all of them farther than a certain threshold would mean rewriting a large part of the code, while instead we are only modifying some values, so, for example, offsets and starting position and so on. So while the guy is almost perfectly true to the arcade, there are some frames of animation that cannot be because of this limitation. At the same time, you can see here, this guy on the right, this looks completely wrong because of the way I optimize the use of sprites. I'm not I'm not happy with just using the way the sprites were used on the original version. So we are actually rearranging them as much as possible. But to do this in certain cases, such as this boss here, it's not something we can still do because changing the position or the offsets of the sprites means we have to understand how the movement of the whole monster is written in the game. Because in his case, the position of the sprites is built into the code that manages the movement. Okay, so we haven't yet understood how the game moves some objects, and we cannot fix the graphics until we also disassemble that part. So it's just a matter of time, but unfortunately, we cannot anticipate how much time it will be needed to fix certain aspect of the game. In the end, we will surely be able to. Okay, so I don't know if I have some more time. I can show you a gameplay video of where we have come if you want.
If you can do very short, but that would be nice. But
Yeah,
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 indeed
sure.
a bit delayed. Yeah.
Okay, okay, I'll just very quick. Okay. Okay. No, okay, so this is level 2, just to show you, because this is the first time I show level 2 with all the sprites changed, even the bubbles, we have changed the color because it was gray in the original, now it's clearer. So this is all, except for Toki, this is still the old sprite. But all the enemies are new versions, so much more colorful, better animated. And you can see here Neptune in all of his glory. The sprites disappear because there are too many of them. This is a problem with the sprite multiplexer. And as you can see, here we have the guy I told you before. This is completely messed up, but it's working. But it looks bad because the sprites had to be repositioned. Also, I'm very proud of this guy here, which looked really bad in the original. Now it's looking a lot better. It's still unfinished because we have to change, fix the position of some sprites, but this is very, very looking very, very better than the original, which was basically gray and yellow. Okay, I guess I can stop. One last thing I want to say. Our team is open. We can have all the help we can get. So if there's anybody who wants to have fun editing an old classic and making people happy to see it fixed, then we are more than welcome, more than happy to welcome him in the team. Okay, that's it.
Good to know. Many thanks, Davide. Actually, one I don't know if there are questions, but one thing you mentioned at the beginning that you were frustrated with the version of the game. I think we all had that, especially because at these times, it's like the hardware that you could have in the arcade was more or less the same as what you could have in home machines, right? So home computers. So it was a bit frustrating to see that they get much better results in those gaming machines. Maybe just a couple of questions from my side. Maybe you mentioned that, but then it escaped my attention. What is then your timeline for the release, or do you plan to release like a couple of levels whenever they are ready, or do you wait for having the full version available, and how do you plan to distribute that?
Oh, okay. The game will absolutely distribute it free. It will be only digital. We don't have the rights to create a physical product. We're not going to sell it, so it will be absolutely free. And my intention is to release it during the next year as soon as possible. Realistically, it won't be out before June. But my intention is to have most of the features that I spoke about at the beginning, so music, backgrounds, and sprites. I'm almost done with the sprites, but they are not all of them into the game. The backgrounds, I started doing them. But the actual problem is with certain aspects of the game. If we want to fix them, it takes a lot of time for you want to find out how they work. So we cannot do a proper calculation about how long it will take to fix it. So if it's gonna take too long, my intention is to release a version that has at least all the sprites changed. Unfortunately, maybe without the new music or gameplay fixes, because that realistically will take a lot of time. So maybe there will be a first version with all the sprites and then a final one with all the other stuff. This is the worst case scenario. In the best case scenario, only one version with everything in. If everything goes as planned, if my buddies don't have personal problems or life issues that get in the way, because it happened to all of us in turn. So work could have been a lot faster if we didn't have families, jobs, and several issues that crop up every now and then. So this is with all amateur projects like that.
Yeah, of course. Good. Many thanks, Davide. I don't know if there are other questions, but looking at the time, maybe if people have questions, they can just post it in the chat. I will stop the recording now.